we're going to begin tonight's meditation talk. It's a question and answer, which is my favorite kind of meditation talk. And I used to really love going to Sifu Brown's question and answer, which would always be a surprise. Here we've got it kind of on a pretty decent schedule, but Sifu Brown would be like just surprise question and answer, and he would start every single one, as he probably still does, with a disclaimer. His disclaimer being that the answers that I give to your questions are not set in stone anywhere. These are not the gospel according to anybody except for me, and it's not even the gospel according to me. This is just my best answer for tonight. And I always like that disclaimer, and the idea here being that ask the same question 10 years from now and you'll get a totally better answer. It might have some of the same kind of themes, but if we are all really growing and doing the work, then the ways that we think about everything should be changing and evolving. So I got one question I think already submitted, and I'll start with Leah. And then you guys at home watching, all the thousands of people watching on Facebook, if you want to submit a question on Facebook, you can do that as well through the comments section. So we'll start with Leah. Go ahead and unmute yourself, ma'am.
People, you may have to help me because I wrote it down and I can't find it.
All right.
How do you define the present moment? And you'll have to read it.
Yeah, I like this. So I got an email with this question first. So the question was, how do you truly define the present moment? I used to think it was simply to not have your mind wander to the past and be here at the exact time right now. So the idea here is that we think of the present moment as like the time. So the time is kind of part of it, but time. What is time? Time is one avenue or way that we experience the present moment, right? So the present is kind of, as you described in your question, is less about knowing it's 7:48 p.m. right now, is more about being able to fully experience the here and now, and it is on a lot of different levels, through a lot of different means, right? So if I am present, I don't have to necessarily know what time it is. In fact, I think thinking about what time it is can bring us out of the present moment. We want to be able to experience it fully and completely. And this is not something that happens in the logical language part of our brain that knows what time it is. That part of our brain can know things on a certain level, but let's say that you're meditating, for example. You're sitting and meditating, and if you're thinking about what time it is, you're not in the present. You're thinking about an abstract concept of time, And it's like when if you were to be meditating and you were thinking, don't think. I'm supposed to have an empty mind right now. I'm supposed to be in the present. All of that thought is not the present moment. That may be a way that you are trying to experience the present, but it is actually in some way standing in between us and the present moment. So what is it? How do we, and this kind of goes into the second part of your question too, which is about how do we experience the moment? How are we present? And it should be something ideally that uses the most of our being and the most of our perception as possible, without getting too logical and without getting too methodical like that. So it is most often the experience of the present is not something that we are adding to the moment, like adding a label of it's this time, or adding a label of I'm doing this or I'm doing that. There's a dog, there's the wind, all that stuff. That takes us out of the present, that takes our experience and makes it something more of the mind and more of the ego, rather than I'm just here. I'm just experiencing, I'm feeling. It's more of a feeling than it is a knowledge thing. So this is one of the reasons why when we meditate, sometimes a meditation can be experienced in a very different way time-wise than you might experience something else, because you're kind of accessing a different part of your mind or a different part of your being that's not so tethered to the way that time usually seems to pass. So many of you guys who have meditated for a long time might have had this experience where you're feeling like time is actually moving very quickly, and it was, I sat for an hour, but it seemed to go by like this. It seemed to go by in just a couple of minutes. That is kind of happening in the same way, because we're in the moment and feeling and experiencing it in that way that is outside of our normal way of experiencing things. So being in the present is not and should not be tied to a specific time at all, and should be tied to as little as possible, because that kind of is like an attachment, right? So it is more like a channel. I'm channeling the present. I'm feeling in this moment whatever is happening, and I'm not attached to it, which allows me to then immediately move into the next moment. And we really shouldn't be, thinking of things as being moment to moment to moment, because that's a separation. That is more of the normal way of experiencing time, and experiencing the moment is not separating it out from the previous moment or from the future moment. It is just here and now. However long or short that is perfect. Other question. Tanya, I got a comment from somebody watching at home. They want to see you guys. You guys are okay with that? I might not do this in the future. Okay, great. So Tanya has a question. Go ahead, Tanya. This is what you asked for, Ken. They're on a computer. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Well, I don't know if he can hear you, but I can hear you.
My question is a little bit tied to what you were just saying in a way, and also a little bit about the question of the week. What excuses are we making? And this morning I asked about the difference between making excuses and setting priorities. And for example, today I had to make a decision whether I would stay for concrete class or go and get my work done that had to be done. And I thought this was interesting because to get my work done, I actually made the decision to come to stop that and come to Tai Chi so that I could refocus and then go back to my work and really focus on that and do that well. And then to not do Kung Fu because I knew that I would leave with a different energy that would not put me in the right state to get my work done. And so both of those practices are about being in the moment, in the here and now. I'm curious about this difference in energy and how when I leave one, either Tai Chi practice or Kung Fu practice, I'm in a completely different state. One of them is very good for getting work done, and the other one is not.
Now, you're starting to get into like a second question. Is your first question about the difference between priorities and making excuses? Because I'm going to start with that, and then we can go into the other thing later on. So, I don't remember where you guys were. I'm going to put you right back here. So, the simple way that I answered this question this morning is where I'm going to start, which is, how do you know if I'm making an excuse or I'm prioritizing something? Well, you know that you're prioritizing if it's not necessarily something that you want to do, but you're doing it anyways. And it's the flip. If you're making an excuse, this is very obvious because it's something that you don't want to do. and then you tell yourself that you're prioritizing, which is an excuse. So you know it's an excuse if you're making excuses about making excuses. And if that confused you, too bad. But you know, you could trick yourself into figuring out if you're trying to prioritize or if you're making excuses. But really, at the end of the day, you should always be prioritizing and knowing the things that are truly important. And this is its own entire talk. Like, how do I know what is really important to me and not just get taken over by what I feel like doing in this moment, or, you know, my habits and what I've always done? The power of prioritizing is taking your feelings and your present state out of the equation, and you should prioritize when you are in the best possible state of mind. If you're at the outset of your day and you're deciding what you're going to do, and you're like, this is the most important, I got to do this first, and then you start saying to yourself, yeah, but it's kind of hard and I don't really want to do that. That's an excuse, and you already lost it. You're already in the wrong state of mind. So the workaround with that is what I've been saying in a couple of classes earlier this week, which is like, if you recognize that you're making excuses about something, a very simple way to deal with it is to just do the thing that you're making excuses to get around. And we're so good, human beings are so amazing at making excuses and coming up with reasons why we can't do the hard things. And it's because human beings are really great at being efficient and effective, although we've taken it a little bit too far and we've efficiencyed ourselves right out of doing the important things in our life into doing the things that are less important and just easy. So that is also its own other talk. The idea that I'm trying to get at right now is we find ourselves making an excuse. You know that you're making an excuse because you're going in the direction of something that's easier. You know you're going in the direction towards something that's easy, away from something that is really going to take something from you. Whether that is like more effort or just, is going to take you being a different person. This is really the hard part of it, is we're always making excuses to keep ourselves small and to keep ourselves the same way. We don't love growing because that is not very efficient. It's very hard to grow. It's very hard to change who you are and to become somebody different and bigger and better. So you recognize yourself making an excuse, and then you just say to yourself immediately, this is an excuse. I'm going to do this thing that I'm making an excuse about not doing. And then the excuse loses all its power. In fact, you get power from the excuse. You take that thing that was stopping you. This is what excuses do, is they stop us from reaching our fullest potential. They stop us from being our best and really living up to our potential by doing the things that are our highest priorities. And instead of allowing it to limit us, we can look at it and say, okay, I know I'm making an excuse about this because it is so hard, or because it is confronting me, or I'm being confronted by something. So then we just do it. And that's easier said than done, but it's simple, so try it out. I think that's as far as I'll get with the difference between excuses and prioritizing. But your other question now is totally different, so I don't know how you were trying to put these things together. But I do Tai Chi, and I finish with some energy that makes me feel kind of like, okay, I'm very much, this is what I'm extrapolating from your question. This is not always my experience, but I am kind of in this focused, calm state where then I can sit and do work, right? And the kind of work that I'm assuming you're talking about is that kind of work that needs a focused calm. Now, there are other people who have different kinds of work, and you might leave Kung Fu and feel like I am really amped up right now, and now I'm going to go do my job that really needs me to like be, a spitfire and I need to have all that kind of energy when I'm talking with people, or I gotta go move heavy stuff. That's my job. And I certainly have experienced this sort of thing, but I've also experienced Tai Chi classes that leave me feeling really amped up, and Kung Fu classes that make me feel like there's nothing that's going to be happening for the rest of the day for me. I'm going to go home and go to bed, and that's it. So let's just take your question and your assumption as the jumping off point. You will do different activities in the dojo and in life that leave you energized in different ways. And some things will leave you in like a more focused calm, and meditation might be one of these things. And you also might meditate in a different way and just feel sleepy at the end. That's not a good thing. You want to be left calm and focused, but not falling asleep halfway through your meditation or Tai Chi. And this is something that we want to be truly aware of, and again, use to our advantage, because if we know what we do to get us into the best frame of mind or the best energetic state in order to take on a certain task, then we do that thing to prepare ourselves for that task. And if we know that doing this other activity, Kung Fu, is going to amp us up in a certain way that leaves us better prepared for a different kind of activity or task, then that's what we do. And it is not, for any of us, I don't think, the case that one of these is always best and the other one is always worse, unless even if you could say, I'm leaving class and I'm feeling sleepy at the end of class. All right, well, then that's the thing that you do right before you go to bed, I guess. If you have a hard time sleeping otherwise. But the recognition, there are really two sides of this, and I guess I already talked about them. The recognition of where we get to naturally after meditation or Tai Chi, for example, is great and useful. And then the other side of it is we want to make sure that we are able to kind of manipulate these states and end up in the way that we want to be, which is not always easy, but should be possible to some extent. So I should be able to do Tai Chi and end up feeling very energized and awake and like ready to go. And then I also should be able to do Tai Chi and end up with a very calm, still mind that doesn't feel like a physical energy, but feels more like a spiritual energy. And that's going to be better suited for other things. So try to do both of those. Be able to use the state that we naturally arise, or that naturally arises for us, and then also be able to do the thing in a way that gives us the state that we want. So that's all about just mindset and being able to kind of enter that activity with a certain mindset or a kind of a goal or an intention. At the end of this Tai Chi, I want to feel this way, and you do Tai Chi in the way that brings that out. Okay, so I got a question from online from Ari. How would a Taoist force themselves to do what they need to do? I trust it would not be by willpower. Yeah, I kind of touched on this a little bit, Ari, and this is not like the only answer for this, but yeah, being able to force yourself to do something that you need to do, the assumption being this is something that you don't want to do, but want to be able to bring this about. So what I mentioned earlier was this idea of kind of using your excuses against themselves or against the ego. I mentioned something else similar in the last class, which was I've got two things. So for me, these two things are most often, and they could be any number of things, but the ones that I remember the most are long meditation and cleaning. And I can actually really enjoy doing both long meditation and cleaning. Usually I enjoy meditation a little bit more than cleaning, but they can both occur for me as a chore. And when I get over that initial hump and I'm in it, then it can be really enjoyable. But the hard part is, for most of us, to just take the first step and start doing the thing. This thing that occurs for us as a chore, that thing is like, oh, even though I know deep down that I love meditating, getting myself worked up to the point where I can sit for 2 hours is sometimes a chore. It's sometimes difficult. And cleaning is always a chore. But we can get ourselves into that place where we're tricking ourselves into doing the thing that we don't necessarily want to do because it seems like a chore. And this is my sneaky Taoist way of doing it. And I don't know if somebody who's a more legit Taoist might disagree that this is a Taoist philosophy, but this is my Taoist philosophy. I get myself to do the meditation by putting off the cleaning. And I say, all right, well, if I better just, clean later on and meditate now. And that makes meditation seem really great in comparison to cleaning. And if I really need to clean, I say, all right, well, I'll meditate later on, but I better really clean now. This is something that actually Sifu Brown gave me the idea for after I figured it out in my own life. He's like, well, this is the way that you deal with little kids who sometimes don't feel like showing up to class. And look, let's be real with ourselves. We're all kind of like little kids some days, maybe every day. And a little kid sitting at home and their parent says, all right, it's time to go to Kung Fu, sometimes doesn't want to go. And it's because they were sitting there playing video games or they were taking a nap or whatever. And to be brought out of that and to have to do anything else seems like a chore. Every single kid who gets to class loves it. Like when I'm cleaning and I get myself in the right mindset, I really enjoy cleaning. But getting there, taking the cleaning supplies out and starting to do the thing is like getting the kid into class. That's the whole battle. And so he said, well, just do this. Just tell the parents to have their kid do something that they hate right before it's time to go to class. So the kids, you're like, all right, time to clean your room, Johnny. And you tell them to do that 10 minutes before it's time to leave for Kung Fu. And then when it's time to leave for Kung Fu, the kid's like, yes, I don't have to clean anymore. It's time. So that's a little bit manipulative, but it works really well. And it's, for a good cause. We can do that with ourselves. We can manipulate ourselves into doing the thing that we didn't really feel like doing 5 minutes ago, but compared to this other thing, all right, I'll do it. We got to just limit our options. It's this thing or this thing. And you'll at least end up doing one thing that you didn't really feel like doing before. So good luck with that. Let me know how it works. I've gotten some chats. Let's see. Okay. So these are both questions. Okay. So Julie, she asked me one and then she changed it to another one. Great. So to address the overly enthusiastic goals. Yeah, like some of us really love to make big, enthusiastic goals. I do this often. Set my sights too high, and then I have to adjust. Should I not set the sights so high so I don't have to change course, which feels like making an excuse? Oh, you're really getting into it now, Julie. You're trying to trick me into telling you not to set goals and all this. You're very sneaky. So, no is the answer to your question. You should not set sights so high, but instead kind of get at it in a baby step kind of fashion, right? So you're right. If you think to yourself, I've got a big goal. My big goal is I want to write a novel. I bring this up sometimes because I secretly want to write a novel and I haven't done it. I've started several times and it always sucks. So I'll use that one. I don't know what yours is, Julie, but it's a novel for us today. This is no small task. It's a thing, and I know this because I kind of enjoy writing, and I still have not written a novel. This is a big goal, and the the way that I am in relationship to this goal is small and incapable. And in relation to other goals, I'm monstrous. And it's not necessarily, I mean, I've accomplished things in my life that I think many people would agree are just as hard or harder than writing a novel. And for some reason, those other things, I'm just Godzilla. These other goals are like, the tiny little cityscape of Tokyo, and I'm like spraying fire and melting entire cities. And then the novel, I'm like a gecko. And it is funny because the answer that I'm going to give to this kind of flies in the face of that whole analogy, but you get the feeling of that, right? You've all accomplished things that at least somebody would look at and say, that's amazing. And yet we find ourselves in the face of these bigger goals starting to make excuses and say, am I setting my sights too high? So you've heard me talk about this with my goal-setting talks at the onset of every year. My favorite talk to give is about setting goals, and there are many different ways to do this and different philosophies behind it. But my favorite is to be very specific with your goals. Know exactly what you need to do. Make it a SMART goal: specific, measurable, achievable, reasonable, and timely. And those are usually goals that might not, at least on the outset, seem to be these huge goals, right? That is not necessarily, I'm going to write a novel. It might be, I'm going to write the first page of a novel, right? But you see, if you zoom out long and far enough where you kind of string these things together, this is how you arrive at your big goal. So we want to be good at chunking these things up into manageable chunks and attack this. So, writing a novel one day at a time, or one page at a time, or just 1 hour at a time. And I might not love the idea of working towards a novel and always feeling like it's a failure because this thing is just crawling along. But if I get myself to write for 1 hour, I can do that, and then allow myself to feel the sense of accomplishment that we get when we accomplish our big goal. That is the goal, to write for an hour. I did it, great, that's it. And then I just do the next day, do the same thing. And then what we're doing is we're training ourselves to set these bite-sized goals that we allow ourselves to feel really good about. We allow ourselves to continue having the motivation for, or the kind of wherewithal to do them, to accomplish them, and then they stack up to be something big. But I also am a huge fan of setting unreasonable goals. These pie-in-the-sky, crazy goals, like just doing the whole novel in one shot. And it is because we want to be able to be Godzilla with that goal. You want to be able to be somebody or some way that you don't usually allow yourself to be. So in the face of this goal, you shrink, make yourself big. Just do it. And there are, and these are, let's be very clear, these are two kind of opposing philosophies. One being, all right, I'm gonna break it down into small chunks that I know that I can accomplish, and then I string them together and they make something huge. And that is definitely a great time-tested way of doing it. We train ourselves to be able to accomplish these things, and then we can even add more and more onto it, and eventually it is just the way that we are with goals. We set a goal, and whatever we set, we know we're going to accomplish it because we've done it so many times with smaller things, and we're kind of building up with baby steps. But also, I like the idea of, I'm going to set out to do something that, this is like the moonshot, right? When JFK said we're going to the moon, we were not going to the moon because we had no ability to go to the moon. It was like, the technology doesn't exist for this. There is a whole world that we have to create in order to make this happen. And he just said it, and then we did it. You might not go to the moon, but you've got some version of that for your life where there are lots of people telling you, Mr. President, we don't have the ability to do that. The technology doesn't exist. We don't even know the math. None of it is going to happen. And then you just say, to hell with it, we're doing it. There are going to be people who are telling you, and some of those people are just the thoughts in your head, that are so sure that you cannot do the thing that you are going to try to do. And they are right. Those people and those thoughts are right, because you, the you that you are now, can't do it. And as soon as you say to yourself, I can't do it, you're right. So you actually need to become a different person. You need to transform yourself from the gecko into Godzilla, and it can't be fake, right? Now, when I say that, I don't necessarily mean what you are thinking that I'm meaning. You can't be fake because you have to actually start doing the things, right? So you say to yourself, I'm gonna write the novel, and you wake up the next day and you don't feel like Godzilla, you feel like the gecko, but you tell yourself, or you ask yourself, what would Godzilla do right now if Godzilla was going to write a novel? I might be starting to lose some of you guys with this analogy. But what would the person who's capable of doing this thing do? And you can conceive of that, and so then you do it. Right? And in the act of doing the thing that massive person would do, you have then transformed yourself, at least in that moment, into that huge person. And it is really as simple as that. So set huge goals. Also set small goals. And you do have to train yourself. Your question is almost like the same thing as, should I show up to my first Kung Fu class and spar with the black sashes in class? Well, black sashes will be nice to you, but you're still going to be an utter failure. It's going to be an abysmal sparring session. So what you should do is show up to class and learn how to throw basics and learn how to move out of the way and do all the stuff that leads up to it, and still be able to, maybe almost certainly, earlier than you think you're ready for it, set that goal of, I'm gonna write that novel. I'm gonna show up to advanced class and do that thing. Now, in the dojo, it's when I say you're ready, and you might not feel ready, but I tell you that you're ready. And you might have to have people in your life who know you to be bigger than you know yourself to be. Some people in your life who look at you like you are Godzilla, and they're like, you're ready, let's do it. Do this thing. I'm happy to be that person for you, and you should have people in your life who are like that. So for these big over-the-top things, you are almost guaranteed to have people who don't think that you can do it, and you need to ignore those people and pay attention to the people who say that you can do it. And if you've got nobody like that, then you at least have to be that person for yourself. You've got to be at least somebody. If you can't conceive of doing it, then make yourself conceive of it. Get an imagination, or get around somebody who really can see you in that way, and then just do it. So that has been our meditation class for tonight. And for those of you guys who didn't hear it earlier in the week, the question of the week is, what excuses am I making? And the challenge of the week is to organize your desktop. And if you're already making excuses for why you don't need to organize your desktop, that's it. So do it. And do that after your meditation. Don't say, well, Sifu said I got to organize my desktop, so I'm going to skip meditation tonight. No. Meditate first, and then when you get out of that meditation, you will be in a state where you can at least make good decisions. And those decisions might be making your priorities for the day or the week or the month or the year or your life. And so decide, and then get right to work on it. No excuses. Sit comfortably.